Very good morning to you, sir.
Sir, good morning. Welcome, sir.
Yeah.
I think you are in mute, sir.
So good morning, sir. Good morning, all.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm just checking my. Yeah, hi Matthew. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for joining. I will leave it to Dr. Ravi to take it forward.
Matthew, before I start, let me just check my slides. I need the slides only towards the end, but my team is here just to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Divya, please give him presentation rights.
Sorry. I don't know. Slide off there. It's okay. I think.
It's okay, sir.
No, I think I thought this one I should have. Okay, it's okay.
You can also do one thing. You can send it to Dr. Ravi so that when you say he can present also.
Okay, no, that is toward the end. Yeah, that's what I'll do now. But the problem is that with those slides are, if it is more than. Okay, 1 minute. I think it will come. It's okay.
Okay, sir. Otherwise, we can ask Divya to present, sir, because he is the host.
No.
Divya would be recording.
Okay.
She must be handling that YouTube also.
Okay.
See, I'm trying to I'm trying to upload a presentation. Very good presentation. Yeah, this the hero is here.
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are. I think I'm. Set questions. Yeah. Sorry. Click and open. I think it's not a. Yeah. Matthew, I'll just call you back. I think I just rejoined.
அந்த கிரண்குமார் option.
Matthew, can you see the slides that sending now?
Yes, sir, we can see.
I think you have to go to slideshow.
Yeah, and I'm not presenting it now. I'm doing it only later. So in that way. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Sorry.
இது சொல்லுங்க மேடம்.
Sir?
மேடம் யூடியூப் லிங்க்ல ஷேர் பண்ணீங்க குரூப்ல. சில பேர்
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
இன்னும் சில பேர் வரலன்னு சொல்றாங்க. மேபி நீங்க அந்த நம்ம கூகுள் மீட் லிங்க் இருக்குல்ல மேடம், அதையும் கூட போடுங்க.
Yes, sir. Okay, okay. I'll share it, sir.
நம்ம யூடியூப் லிங்க் எனக்கு அனுப்புங்க மேடம். Ma'am, shall we start, ma'am?
Yes, sir, we can start, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
Very good morning to you all. Warm welcome to our faculty development program on critical and creative thinking skills. Now let me thank the Lord Almighty for His presence and strengthening us through His knowledge and wisdom to organize this program in a glorious manner. Welcoming you all today is a profound honor for me. I'm Dr. P. Thiruselvi from Michael Job Memorial College of Education, Coimbatore, and I'm going to moderate the session. Here I acknowledge my heartfelt welcome to our management, trust members, and advisory committee of this program, Dr. and Mrs. Mary Job, Chairperson, MJC, Mr. T. Koshi, Head MJC and Vice President, Mrs. Elizabeth K., Trustee and Head Operations, MJC, Mr. Babu Pivaru, Secretary and Trustee, Mr. Matthew V. Francis, our CEO, MJC, and Dr. R. Ravi, Principal MJCOE, Deputy CEO, MJC, and Director of this Faculty Development Program. Mr. Vijay Dominic, our resource person today, faculty members from MJC and other institutions, and valuable participants from various institutions across the globe. Here, I just thank the overwhelming responses for our program. Even last time, your responses was really good. And this time, in fact, it is exceeding the previous webinars responses. So once again, thank you very much, dear participants. And on behalf of Principal Organizing Committee members, I'm welcoming you all. Dear participants, here are a few instructions to have a seamless webinar experience. Feel free to use chat box to drop your questions, which will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Feedback link will be shared to you only at the end of the session, and it will be active only for 30 minutes. Dear participants, feedback link will be shared only at the end of the session and will be active only for 30 minutes. Submission of feedback form is compulsory, and e-certificate shall be issued to the participants who have submitted the feedback forms on both the days. These are all the instructions for you, dear participants. Now let me introduce our resource person today. Dear participants and other members, we are not just attending the discerning meeting, we are building up the academic landscape of tomorrow. Thank you for joining us today, and our agenda is packed with enlightening sessions, each designed to challenge conventional thinking and hence to mold the future. Today's, through engaging interactions, let's uncover trends in the field of academics, embracing the transformative power of collective wisdom with the guidance of our resource person, Mr. Vijay Dominic, Chief Evangelist Officer, Fractal Analytics, and Chairman, Final Mile Consulting, Mumbai, who pioneered the development of the field of behavior architecture by combining learning from cognitive neuroscience, artificial intelligence, behavioral economics, and design. My hearty welcome to you, sir. He is a visiting faculty at IIM Mumbai, Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar, MICA. He has delivered lectures at London School of Economics, Chicago Booth School of Business, University College London. And he has used behavioral architecture to solve some of the most significant human behavior problems in the world. Authors fortnightly column, Behavior by Brain, in Mint newspaper. In the past 12 years of his career, he had been trying to answer this question: how do we change human behavior? In the first 18 years of his career, he realized that the existing paradigm of understanding human decision-making is inadequate, and the traditional strategies are impotent in initiating the desired changes in human behavior. He slowly recognized that the brain is the source of all thoughts and actions. This realization led him to the fields of cognitive neuroscience and behavioral economics and design. The combination of knowledge from these fields led to the genesis of the practice of behavior architecture. He believed that the best way to propagate a new stream of knowledge is to show its utility in solving the most significant problems in society and business. In the year 2018, when Final Mile Consulting became a part of Fractal Analytics, a world leader in AI and data analytics, he unraveled the complexities of human decision-making process, unpowered every one of them, and started intersecting human and machine intelligence. He is firm in his thought and belief that the master algorithm in our heads, better will be the technology we develop for our machines. And this is how he became the expert as behavioral architecture. Some of his articles are Great Shock, EdTech businesses failed on student behavior. Do we have free will? The answer has big implications. Wake up call for AI makers. They should take the iPad ads backlash seriously. Questions have a hot new role in the age of AI, stirring human minds. Getting humans to trust faceless machines remains a challenge for tech giants. These are all very few interesting ones, but actually he has done many articles in several periodicals. Finally, he is not only good at professional, but a great individual too. With all these expertise, dear participants, in his masterclass today, we assure you that you will gain valuable insight to help you stay ahead of the curve. We are proud and privileged to have such an eminent resource person to accomplish this program. Dear friends, like we are now set to explore new horizons. Please join Mr. Biju Dominic in this insightful journey and discover the cutting-edge strategies of academic evolution. Sir, now the session is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Thesalvi. That was a very, very long introduction. Thank you.
Still, you deserve it, sir, because when I was just going through it, it was still more, because you are given in a detailed way how you became a behavioral analyst now. So I wanted to share this with the participants. Thank you, sir.
I actually gave Matthew a much shorter, just 2 paragraphs, and I said, okay, that should be more than enough. Anyway, I know you looked at all the things. Okay, good. Participants, I'm really, really happy to share some of my thoughts with you today. I have only one request for you. It would be great if you can actually switch on your cameras, because, when I see your eyes and when you see your faces, as teachers, that the feedback that you get from the students, whether they like the sessions, the class that you take, or they're bored with the sessions, and I'm sure that feedback is what allows you to sort of change your tone and change the stories that you actually tell the students. The same is with me. Otherwise, if I see very blank rectangles in front of me, I find it very difficult to actually communicate with each of you. Okay, thank you for switching on your cameras. Really makes it easy for me, for me. Otherwise, it's difficult. Okay, so we're going to talk about critical thinking and sort of how do you get our students to ask questions? Okay, let me first begin this session by asking 3-4 questions. Maybe 3 questions I'll begin with. Who is the richest woman in the world? Right now. Who is the richest woman in the world? And I know this is not a classroom. I would always prefer if it was a classroom session. You could have asked and then sort of a feedback. I'm sure you have an answer. Or maybe if I had asked who is the richest man in the world, maybe you would have said, I think it's Elon Musk, is it Jeff Bezos? I'm not sure. Is it, I'm not too sure. But at least you would have had an answer. But who's the richest woman in the world? I'm not too sure, unless you're one of those quiz participants who take part, you might not have an answer. But what about who won the Miss Universe contest last year? 2023 Miss Universe. Who won? Or let me ask you, whichever field you are in, literature, physics, chemistry, who won the Nobel Prize in your area of interest or your area of expertise last year? Who won? So who won the Nobel Prize in literature last year? Who won Nobel Prize in physics last year? Who won the Nobel Prize in economics last year? I'm not too sure whether you have the answers for these. But look at the irony of it. All of you are some of the most educated people in the world. You're all teachers who teach students. So you have definitely really good knowledge about things that are around you. But look at the fate of that woman who has become the richest person and struggled really hard. Because what does we normally think about people? We say, yeah, I want to become rich and famous. I want to really earn few thousands or if not lakhs of crores, so the whole world will come to know about me. Or I want to become the most beautiful woman in the world, so that the whole world should come to know that here is the most beautiful person. And all of us want to be beautiful. Or we say, I want to be the most knowledgeable person in this field, so I want to get a Nobel Prize. So this woman struggled, I'm sure, not for months, for years and years. She would have worked very, very hard to run a business. She earned thousands of billions of dollars in that process. She became the richest person in the world. Or the next person, she would have been very, very, very cautious about her beauty. She would have worked very hard. She would have done a lot of exercises. She would have maintained, obviously, Miss Universe competition at the country level. Then from the country level, she goes to the global level. And in that competition, the most beautiful, most intelligent women or girls across the world come together. In that contest, she wins the prize. Or look at the Nobel Prize winning person. He or she would have been, working hard for years and years and years. And one day he gets a call from Sweden and saying, you've been awarded the Nobel Prize in your field. Great, you feel great. But when you also realize that we don't remember any of them, we are all supposed to be knowledgeable people. So despite the fact that they're the richest people in the world, despite the fact that they won the Miss Universe, they're the most beautiful people in the world, despite the fact that they won Nobel Prize in that field, we don't really remember that name. But let me ask you a question. Who taught you in your first standard? I know it's been a while since you finished your first standard. You are all finished your M.Ed and although I'm sure you're all in your 20s, if not your 30s. So it's been 20, 25 years or 30 years since you finished your first standard. Who taught you in your second standard? What's the name of the teacher? Who taught you in your third standard? Who taught you literature in your 10th standard? Who taught you history in your 10th standard? You're all teachers. There is a truth, maybe the biggest truth about being a teacher is that the kids, and I can assure you, all that you teach, the formulas of hydrochloric acid, when was the first year of Panipat, which is the poem of Wordsworth, and all that you taught them, the kids will forget. Forgetting is an integral part of the construction of our brain. They will forget who's the richest man in the world. They will forget who's the most beautiful woman in the world. They will forget even the Nobel Prize winners in their respective fields. But that's the truth about being a teacher. The kids that you teach, whether it's in the first standard, second standard, third standard, fourth standard, eighth standard, ninth standard, 10th standard, the kids will never forget you. They might forget everything in life, but they will not forget you who taught them. I obviously distinctly remember my first standard teacher. I was in a convent school. I don't really remember her face, her name, but I still remember her face somewhere. Second standard teacher, I know her. I know which sister taught me. Third standard, I definitely know her. They're no more. Fourth standard was not a sister, was a normal teacher. Maybe one of the most loving teachers I've had in my life. But I also remember the fifth standard teacher. The first time I moved from a Malayalam medium school to an English medium school about 20 kilometers away from my home, I didn't know how to speak in English. And all the students who sat beside me were students who've learned English in their, right from their first standard. And so, when teacher used to ask me even a simple question like, "What's your name?" It took me some time to figure out what that question was. In my typical Malayalam accent and Malayalam this was It was my anxiety. I didn't understand the question. My teacher laughed at me, along with the whole class. I can still feel that in my ears. I felt very, very bad. I felt very bad when everyone laughed at me in the class. I didn't like the teacher. She taught me how to write. English should be that, continuous letters. You should continuous continuous writing. To this day, I don't write my English in a continuous way because I didn't like the teacher who insulted me in front of everyone. I didn't like English language for a long time. Until 8th standard, I moved to a different school, and there was a father by name Father K.D. Joseph who taught me again, who loved me again, and he taught me again how to speak in English. He's in his 90s. I just went to meet him in Thrissur a few days back, few months back. I touched his feet again to thank him for loving me, for giving me the love of English to me. I still remember him. Remember one thing, the very profession of teaching that you got into, your kids are going to remember you. I remember Father K.D. Joseph every day almost of my life for what he did to me, for having believed in me much before I believed in myself. He's the person who told me somewhere deep inside that, Biju, you can be a success in life. You're not a failure, man. And that's what he taught me. I also remember my 5th standard teacher who laughed at me. The moment you've taken your profession as a teacher, as I said, they will forget everything in the world, but they will not forget you. The question that I have for each of you is, what will your kids remember you for? What will your kids remember you for? I think that's the most significant question you should be asking yourself every day in the evening as you finish your class and as you're going back home. And somewhere in the midst of things there, you should be asking, what are my kids remembering me for? And today's session is all about making sure the kids remember you for having created that interest in a subject. I look back at the teachers who taught me just the joy of learning English language, joy of learning of history, joy of learning. They taught me, and I remember that. So, the first thing I just want to tell you is, you will be remembered, and I think we should be very cautious in terms of cognizant of the fact that what you will be remembered for. How do we make sure that you are a person, you as a teacher, who actually inculcated the love of learning into your students? How do you do that? Now, one thing I know, I've been working for the last 34 years, trying to change some of the biggest problems in the world, to get people to drive safely on the roads, to get people to pay their taxes, get people to, you tell me a human behavior problem, and I would have worked on it. Making sure the girl trafficking doesn't happen, making sure the rapes don't happen, making sure that the women in the rural areas of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar take their vitamin tablets, and when COVID happened across the world, multiple countries, we were trying to make sure that people take the vaccines in time. So you tell me, and I've always been trying, or my team has been working on to tell people, do the right thing. So similar way, you can tell the students, study, man, study. You should study. I can tell you one thing. From my experience of the last 34 years of trying to change human behavior, and trying to tell them to study, nothing will happen. And we need to find a way to create, interest in them. How do you get them to love learning? That's the big question. I think so far, what has been learning all about, or we've been asking our students, what is knowledge? When you say, my students have got very good knowledge. Because we ask them questions. What is 2 into 2? Teacher? Oh, that's 4, teacher. Very good. Or you ask them much later, tell me what is the formula for hydrochloric acid? Okay, teacher, HCl. Oh, very good. Or when did the first, which year did the war of Panipat happen? Something. Good. I think as long as they give you the right answers, for the questions you asked, you said, you are a good student. But something dramatic have changed in the last 5-10 years. Today, you ask me, when did the first year of Panipat happen? Google, when did the first year of Panipat happen? Teacher, here is the answer for you. That means the questions that you're asking, the search engines will make sure the students give you the answer. So why should they sit and mug up all those dates the way I did it? I'm sure you also did the same thing. I'm definitely more older than you. Why should they do it when it's here? Obviously, when I was doing my engineering or my days, I remember every, phone number. Oh, I could remember, including the girls' hostel, this hostel, that person, every phone number I could remember. There was no phone book, nothing. It's all there. Now, if you ask me, assume my phone is gone and I had to call up my wife and say, hey, just tell the driver to come, or tell my daughter, hey, please ask the driver to come. I have to, okay, 99. I can't even remember 2 phone numbers right now because it's been taken care of. Why should I remember so many phone numbers? It's a similar with knowledge. When the knowledge is available and the search engines, the way with generative AI, things are moving with audio, with video, all of it is amazingly brilliant, can be given the answers around there. I think this is causing a fundamental shift or has to create a fundamental shift in the way we create education. I think education cannot be about just giving answers, giving the right answers. That is the way it used to be. 100 out of 100 means whatever questions I asked, the student gave the answer. Yeah, you're a very good student. I think there's a fundamental shift. And I think we need to acknowledge that fundamental shift. No, I teach. Teaching is a hobby for me. I teach in most of the management institutes in this country. So I am Mumbai, I am Ahmedabad, XLRI, XIM, Bhubaneswar. I mean, a lot of MICA in Ahmedabad. I think that's management. I teach in design schools, the NID in Ahmedabad, or, I'm in the BITS Pilani design schools. So I teach design schools. Obviously, I go abroad and I teach. So I love teaching because that's when I learn quite a few things. Because preparing for a class, of course, I read a lot and I prepare. So I teach because I want to learn the latest things around there. That's why I teach. So recently I was, last term, I had offered a course in IIM Mumbai. So obviously IIM, you get extremely bright students. So I took a Maggie pack to the class. And Maggie is something which all of you are aware of. So I opened the Maggie. And which I think immediately inside that you have what? This is masala. Oh, you know it much better than obviously I'm not. You ask my wife and she'll tell you, Biju, he's talking about cooking and masalas and all that. I don't even enter that place called the kitchen. But then I know what this is. Yeah, when my wife is not at home, you have to survive. Even before the Zomatos and all this came in, the only option was Maggie. And that was my breakfast, that was my lunch, that was my dinner. So I know all about it. Now there's a question. The masala is kept separately in a pouch. I also have with me Maggi masala kappa noodles. And all I need to do is to pour some hot water there, open it, pour some hot water, I can have it. So here the masala is obviously mixed with the noodles. But this one, the masala is kept separate. Why? And the question that I asked to the students in IIM is, why did Maggi noodles have kept the masalas in a separate pouch? And what is it that it has to teach the artificial intelligence industry on how to write their algorithms or how to develop their products? So it was 2 questions. Why was the masala kept separately in a pouch? And what is that learning got to do for the artificial intelligence industry, the AI industry, while they develop some of the most cutting edge technologies in the world? That's a question that I asked the students in Indian Institute of Management, Mumbai, last term. That was the final term question for 100 marks. I think I have completely changed my approach to teaching, because now I'm fairly convinced that any question that I give it, the students will go to the Google search and come up with answers. So what's the point in generally asking, teaching them those things? I realize answers is not what I'm really looking for, really, from students. Because I think I'm trying to realize that what students should have today are questions. Are questions. Are they asking me intelligent questions? Wow, that's an interesting question. That's interesting. And my whole approach to learning has completely changed. And I think it's all about, the role of questions. Now, when I started asking questions, and I started questioning about everything in life. So I asked, and I begin normally most of my sessions, in the corporate world, or even in, as I said, IIMs and all of them. So because Fractal is the world leader, we tend to deal with at least top 100, 150 companies, top companies in the world, if not more. Of the 100, 150 top companies, we work with most of the companies. So every week I tend to meet or have some meetings or something or the other with some of the top icons of the corporate world across the world. And in some of those discussions, I asked them with one question: who invented telescope? Who invented telescope? And immediately answer, even before Biju, Galileo. Oh, yeah? Is that so? Is that so? So take to Google, go and search, and then you can find who invented telescope. Just write, and you will find an answer. And you realize the name called Hans Lippershey. It comes in 1608. A Dutch spectacle maker by name Hans Lippershey actually invented telescope. Galileo heard of it, because as soon as Hans Lippershey has invented the telescope, it became the biggest attraction across all the fairs in Europe. So people stood in line for hours to stand in front of that instrument where they could look through it and they could see the ships that are docked far away in the port. How much closer? Wow, this is something brilliant. People started talking about it. Galileo was doing a lot of experiments and all, heard of it. And he, obviously asked Lippershey, said, what is this all about? He said, yeah, this consists of a lens, and because of that. So Galileo said, can you make one for me? He said, of course, I'll make one for you. And he did. And he gave it to Galileo. Now, all that Galileo did was, what people were using to look at, this one docked the ship, he just changed the angle in which people were using the telescope so far. Instead of just looking at the ship that had docked up there, he started looking at up there. That's all he did. They just changed the angle on the way they were looking at things. And obviously, when he changed the angle, he saw a whole lot of things that the world hasn't seen until then. And then along with those discoveries, what he found up there in the heavens, today we obviously give that discovery of telescope also to Galileo. But the good thing is, because I asked a question, at least I could actually find the right answers. Because many a time we are not questioning the existing paradigms. We're just taking for granted. Oh, Galileo invented, listen, Galileo. But is that really so? Now that these brilliant search engines are out there, can you not just type that one more time and really look to see whether that's the right answer? Which means we need to ask questions about things that we took it for granted. They're all gospel truths. But when you start asking questions, you realize, no, things are different. I think the answers are different. And it's just not about, to question the scenario across. 1900, it was one of the biggest conferences on mathematics happening in Paris. And one of the most famous mathematicians of that point of time, and his name is David Hilbert, he stood up and he said, here I'm standing in front of some of the greatest mathematicians in the world. So, mathematicians, if you think you're a great mathematician, I have these 23 problems. I have these 23 problems. Mathematical problems, of course. If you're a great mathematician, solve it. Solve it. To this day, 124 years later, only 13 of those 23 problems have been solved. 10 of those problems are still not solved. The most mathematical researchers of the whole 20th century, and to a large extent even today, a lot of them are based on those questions that David Hilbert asked in 1900 in Paris. Because there are questions that can keep you awake. Not just the whole night, your whole lifetime. You're willing to give up. I want to find an answer to that. I want to find an answer to it, possibly ahead of the world. At my age too, I wake up because, yes, I worked on a whole lot of problems. But I still have a lot to solve. For example, why do men rape? I have a daughter. Why should the men be violent towards women? And I can go on, but there are so many problems that I wake up with every day. Just recently, the government of Abu Dhabi asked us, yeah, we are the richest country in the world, but just because we are so rich, they have 3-4 servants all around them, so they don't even have to bend down. If a spoon falls down from their hand, there'll be a servant who comes in, man, here is the spoon. So what does that cost? People are so luxurious that they don't even have to move around. 65 to 70% of that population is obese or overweight. And all that the government asked us was, can you get these guys to take more steps? How do you make them a bit more stiff? It's a problem my team is working on. We just worked on. And its solutions, numbers have come in. That's why I said, you tell me a problem and we'll always be working on multiple problems around the world. Just the other day, there's another problem. For example, iron and folic acid, because those tablets are necessary for women during the pregnancy should take that. And because of that, then obviously the children that born will actually be much more healthier. Now, government of India is giving that iron and folic acid tablets free to women. Now, we're doing that in Bihar right now, in some of the poorest villages. Despite those tablets being given free to the women are not taking it. So they come to us and said, why they're not taking it? And that's a problem this is a question which my team is trying to find answers for. I think so. If you have the right question, I think people will not sleep. They just get excited to say, teacher, I will find teacher, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. I think that's the power of questions. That's why I said David Gilbert could get the whole mathematical community to sit for 124 years. With all the mathematical intelligence that they have, the questions were so brilliant that just half of them have been solved. And as a teacher, you have the ability to excite the whole mathematical community, the chemistry community, or those students that are sitting in front of you. Do you have a question for them? Do you have a question for them which excites them? I think the power of questions are such that you should even get them to think beyond. They're just a subject you learn. And, right now I know with Matthew and other members of the MJC, Dr. Ravi and all of them, and when I'm part of that, I have multiple discussions on how is the new education policy and how it can be implemented in schools and all that. So I'm part of some of those discussions. The new education policy is very good. One thing which I really like about it, they're talking about multidisciplinary learning. How do you get students to combine learnings from multiple subjects and then find an answer? Depends on the questions you ask. So when in my MBA class, I asked them, is arranged marriages better or love marriages better? Even those of you teachers among this who are not married will all say, Biju, obviously love marriage. What do you think? I will, somewhere everyone is sitting at home. I go there. She comes with one chai, coffee or whatever. You take it. Obviously, all the questions they ask you, where did you do your, which school are you teaching? Where do you teach? Or 3-4 questions, 10 minutes. You come back home and your father will ask, Biju, shall we proceed? Papa, Daddy, I just spoke to her for 10 minutes. I need to understand her. He said, no. That in cities and all here, no understanding. Do you want to marry her or should we go ahead? And okay, we'll go ahead. That's what I did about 33 years back. I met, and that's only one girl I've met in my life, because in my college days, I tried. I still remember my mother asking me, around the time when I was by marriage, she says, Biju, do you have anyone in mind? So I told her, Mommy, I had a lot of people in my mind, in my engineering days and my MBA days. Unfortunately, none of them had me in my mind. No. So then she said, okay, Nana, in Madras there is that girl. So why did you go and meet her? I went, met one. That's the first girl I met. I came out of the house and my parents asked me, what do you think? Shall we proceed? I'm not even people. Comparisons. Somewhere in my mind, I said, yeah, okay, that's it. Yeah, 33 years later, I'm still married to that girl I met that day. So but then people say, Biju, that's your stupidity. It's all about understanding your person. You should understand for months, if not for years. So, okay, but then from a decision-making science, it's a big science. Every guy will be okay. Now, this is something which is concerns them. They will go. I'll go and find out. Look, let's find correlations between them. Ragging is banned in all educational institutions, the Supreme Court of this country. But there's one educational institution where ragging will never be banned. Or it's not been banned. Because when juniors join the college, first 6 months, the seniors will beat them up. Every year it happens. Where is that? Now, they don't call the word ragging. They call it hazing or whatever. It's the Indian Army, the NDA or the Indian Military Academy. The juniors are beaten up. Why? At the same time, all these organized religion, all the pilgrimage places on top of the mountains. Why? If it's somewhere on the plains, they will also create one, some fasting and other things alongside with it. Why? What's the correlation? I think when you raise questions like these, it forces them to think. These are things that they see around them every time, but they don't have answers. And I can assure you, if you do a search on your Google, it's not going to throw up those answers. And that's when the multidisciplinary learning has to come in. So it's not because I told them study new education policies, telling you to have multidisciplinary learning. That is why you need to learn multiple things. None of it. I just told them, I asked them some interesting questions. Questions that are relevant for them. Questions that are intriguing for them. And once I had those questions, the studying or the learning just becomes an automatic process around there. And I think it's also important why we need to move into questions, because, the existing paradigm, which is based on answers, tend to give a perception to the students that, teacher, I've studied everything. Why are you sitting there? No, I studied what you asked me to do. Teacher, I got 50 out of 50 last exam. And what is that? We are almost telling the student, you know it all. You know it all. If some of you have time, there's a book that I would recommend. That book is written by this professor in Columbia University. Now, he was teaching neuroscience in Columbia University. And after the course was over, as we said today also, it's a feedback session. So the feedback sessions, the students said, sir, very good. I know how the brain functions. Very good class, very good. So he got a very high distance on, sir, now we know how the brain functions. Any teacher should have been happy with that. But not that professor. He said, what? By sitting in my class for some 30 hours or so, and reading some 2 books in the class on human brain, these kids are telling me that they know how the human brain functions. He stopped taking that session anymore. And he started a new course in Columbia University called Ignorance. The importance of ignorance. And if you just do and there's a small book, I think it's there in my library, called Ignorance. Stuart, the second name I forget. Ignorance. And there he talks about the importance of ignorance. How you need to create a feeling of ignorance in my students, in your students. Not a feeling that I know it all, teacher. But instead, a humble feeling, teacher, I need to learn much more. Huh? But it's very interesting. I'll try my best. I think it's so interesting, teacher. This is where I think I'll do my graduation also, the same subject. think I'll do my post-graduation also on it. And also do my PhD also. I think it's really interesting. No, I can see it. It's so vast. So vast. I can keep on learning. Can you create a feeling of curiosity about the subject, but more so a feeling of ignorance? I don't know enough, but it's so interesting that I want to keep on learning. I think we need to create that feeling of ignorance. But many times when I take sessions for even parents, I tell them the same is applicable for you as teachers also. And I am a teacher, so I know it for myself. I am a parent, and I know one thing. If my daughter goes astray in life, I can't blame the priests in the church or teachers in the school. They interact with my daughter for just few hours in a week. You know, if my child goes astray in life, there's only one person, maybe two people are responsible. Me and my wife. Because kids are imitating. Kids learn by imitation. And the parents are the people who are the most important. And studies have shown the vocabulary, the reading habits of the parents have a direct correlation to the reading habits and vocabulary of the kids. After that, it's the teachers. You have a big role to play. And let me ask each of you as teachers, how do you consider ignorance? Do you consider that to be a strength or a vulnerability? A student asks a question that you don't know. So what do you do? Sit down. And then, because you don't want to show off your ignorance, because you don't know that answer to that question. And I think a student will generally ask him, the whole idea is to keep him down. Oh, such naughty. Well, sit down there. They're all stupid questions and all. Sit there. Ask me. Let me ask you a question. Or you tend to say, well, okay, you ask me. Tell me the answer for this. And you ask him some question to put him down. That means he can't. But what is your worry? You're worried about telling the students that I don't know. I can tell you that would be your greatest strength. The student asks you a question. Teacher says, oh, that's interesting. I don't know. But it's a very interesting question. So let's all search for it. And you also become a part of the search process for finding answer to that. Now, what are you telling the students? There's nothing called ultimate knowledge. Somewhere, everything you reach, full knowledge about everything. You will never reach it in any subject. And you have to be the living example of it. Glad to tell the students, I don't know enough about this subject. I know little bit. I'm sharing that with you. In all that humility is what inspires the students to say, yeah, I also then will continue to search. So when he gets 50 out of 50 or 100 out of 100, he will not say, oh, I know it all, teacher. The feeling of ignorance has to be there in you as a teacher. That feeling of, and because of that ignorance, wanting to, read more. 2 days later, they say, how many of you say, Ram asked that question, and that day I told him that I don't know, but how many of you searched for it? Ram, did you search? See, I've searched, and I think I'm finding a bit of the answer. Yeah, I think this is possibly could be one of the ways that could be done. Or this could be that. Or I spoke to our other teachers, they told me, Ramchandra sir and this sir, and also told me that. Now, what are you telling them? That you are not the all in all of that knowledge of the subject. We are willing to talk to multiple people. And then from that search, you're slowly willing to come up with answers. That's the example that you should actually show off to tell your kids about. But I think the more important factor that you should actually be worried about is at times you can have wrong questions. And they should be careful. It happened in history. Plague hit the whole of Europe. Lakhs and lakhs of people were dying. And the question that was asked then is, why is this happening to us? Why is this happening to us? And the religious authorities, the most powerful people of that time said, it's all happening because you're all sinning. You're all committing sins. You're all sinners. And God is angry with you. And that's why He sent down plague. So repent, pray, and all your problems will get sorted out. Did it get sorted out? It didn't. It went on for hundreds of years. Much later, a man called Louis Pasteur asked another question. He didn't ask, why is it happening to us? If he had asked the same question, the same answer would have happened. God is angry with you. But I think the question that he asked is, what is causing this problem? What is causing this particular problem? And he realized, germs. And the discovery of germs and the discovery of medicine. So even God doesn't want you to ask the wrong questions. He's brought in intelligence to all of us to ask the right questions. And from the understanding of germs, the penicillin, obviously, the whole medical history changed. So be very, very, very careful. What is the question that you're asking? Because the wrong questions can take you completely in a wrong direction. And you think you have answers for it, but those answers are not going to help you to reach where you are. So it's very important you ask the right questions. But the great thing is, you look at all the innovations in the world. You look at all the innovations in the world. It all come from someone who asked a question. All the discoveries in the world. It could be not just scientific discoveries, but even discoveries like Vasco da Gama said, okay, I have to reach India. How do I go? I can't because the land is all docked by other kingdoms that are not allowing us. How do we go? And if you look at that search for how do I find a new sea route to India, in that question, the whole shipbuilding technology changed. The whole navigation technology changed. And in that search, Columbus went in one direction and he went and discovered one whole continent called America. All from that one question. What is the sea route to India? What is the sea route to India? The number of discoveries that came from that one question. So look at all innovations. It begins with questions. I'm almost ending it out here. Because I think I've more than an hour, it's been almost an hour that I spoke to you. So let me just sum it up before I leave it for questions to you. I hope my slides are able to show that. Just a summary of it. Just hold on, please. Yeah. Yeah. So I think as I'm summing it up, I just want to reiterate these points. And these were the points that I discussed. Answers do not induce learning. Answers were the way we have tried to look at education so far. As long as students gave answers, the right answers, the perfect answers, we said, wow, that is brilliant. But with search engines coming in and smartphones now being available with every student at any time, all the time around there, now our whole education system that is based on that is not the right way to go. I think that's why I, today introduced the importance of questions as far as learnings are concerned. But I think it's important that we really think through the questions that we actually generate. And I gave the example of David Hilbert, and I think the questions that he asked and how that kept the whole mathematics community, awake for not just for a few days and few months, for 124 years later also. I think they're still sitting awake trying to solve that particular problem. The question that I will ask each of you is, can you, every day as part of preparing for your class, can you at least have few questions that just creates that interest among all the kids sitting in front of you? But told you, wrong questions can take you in the wrong directions. So I think we need to think through and make sure questions are intelligent and your questions are able to take you in the right direction. Because right question, look at every innovation in the world that has always begun with one question, maybe multiple questions, but it's begun with a question. A certain dissatisfaction. Why is it this way? Why? How can I improve upon it? How can I find a solution to this particular problem? Somewhere in that thought, that question, that sort of embed in that person's mind, years and years and years later, is where the answer came. But the answer has come in. What kept him alive right through those days is that the power of those particular questions. But what is more important is, as I said, is because you've taken this profession of teaching, I told you about the truth. They will forget everything that you teach. All the all those things that you've said, they will forget. They will also, forget possibly, as I said, the richest man, the most beautiful people, the Nobel Prize winner. They'll forget a whole lot of things there, because forgetting is an essential and important facet of the human brain. But one thing that you will never really forget are the faces and the names of the teachers who taught you in your school. And I think you will be remembered. That's a great thing. But I think you should be asking yourself, what are you going to be remembered for? Are you going to be remembered for having kindled a whole curiosity in a whole lot of students about the subjects that you teach? That means not just after you've taught them, they actually wanted to go deeper and deeper and deeper into that subject. A feeling of ignorance, obviously, which leads to curiosity. But curiosity always comes with a feeling of ignorance. And that feeling of ignorance and that feeling of curiosity always comes with the questions that you were able to raise in their minds. And I think my wish for each of you listening to me is that you manage to generate very interesting questions in the kid's mind, so that you actually inspire that love for learning in every student who sits in front of you. That's a wish I have for you. I hope this session at least gave you something to think about as you really want to move forward. The importance of questions. Teaching your students to ask questions. And may you manage to do that among hundreds and hundreds of students you teach. Now, I'm ready to listen to any questions that you have for me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful sessions given for us. Really, it was so enthused for listening your statements and sir. Now, dear participants, please come up with your clarifications, and sorry is waiting for you. Any clarifications, please come up.
I haven't checked the chat box. If any of you, Dr. Ravi, if any of you looking at the chat box, are there any questions there? You can
Yes, I am checking.
just read it. Yeah.
So far, nothing comes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. This
Yeah,
is
please.
This is Revati from Michael Job College of Education.
Yeah, Ravi.
Sir, it was a very insightful session. We had such a great, useful information which you have conveyed. Again, we are going back to Socratic method of learning and teaching. So thank you so much for sharing such a valuable insight, sir. I just have one practical question. Like we could witness our school education system still going on marks basis. And for this, most teachers still focus on rote learning strategies for the students instead of kindling their brain property of neuroplasticity. What is your thought regarding this, sir?
Revati, when certain things we have to accept it because we can't dramatically change the education system. And so we have to work within the system many a time, not many a time, almost all the time. It will be very, very, very difficult for us to expect the system to change. So a mark-based approach will continue. There's no doubt about it until you reach possibly, some MBA levels and all that. When possibly I have my person to do that, but even then, marks and other things are important. So what I would still suggest is try to make a change within the system. So it is not about let the marks, let those, what I said, knowledge-based type of, evaluations continue because you have no option to do it. But again, that still doesn't stop you from leaving few questions to your students. End of the year when they leave, the subject, they should say, there are these questions for you. Make sure you, have it. So you can coexist. The existing ways, yes, I agree, they're not really the perfect, but we're not going to change it. It will, for you to change, and it will take decades and decades. It will still be the same for a long time. But you can still make a difference by instilling some of these, and not so much for marks, but you actually create it. Two, in the school and others, you can always write a question. Maybe beginning of your subject itself, you would say, these are two questions I have for you. Okay, hopefully by end of the term, when we finish the subject, let's see if we have an answer to that. Like, for example, I asked you this question. Why is the masala kept separately? Because it is a very, very important facet. And I know all of you ladies more so, even men, when you're using this masala, how many of you have cut this and put only half of this there? No, you actually put the whole masala in. But there's an in-between act that you do, most of the women. Because as you put the half, you stir it, then you take, which means what? You know my kid's taste, or I know what my husband's taste is. So this, okay. And then put the rest of it and stir it again and give. Now, what is that? It suddenly there's a role for you as a mother. There's a role for you as a husband, a wife. A role for you as a mother who knows my kid's taste. A role for you as a wife who knows my husband's taste. That is why you put half, then this is there. Now, you take that away, you tell her that you can pour hot water in this and give it to the child. That role has been taken away. You take your role as a mother away from you. I take the role as a wife away from you. How much ever you will complain about your husband and other things, you still don't want to do it. And any product, artificial intelligence comes and says, we don't need humans. We'll handle it all by ourselves. Now, based on this, I'm telling, as you would have seen in my columns also, AI will not survive. If humans are completely away, AI will not survive. That is what this sasha teaches you. So what I'm saying, everything, every question, everything has an answer. And when you go deeper into that answer is able to take you to much bigger things in life. And I would say as a teacher, have such questions which are very practical, but has got depth, and making sure that sort of holds the whole class throughout the whole term. And you can remind them, how many of you find answers? So far, what we have taught, is there anything that find answers to someday you can answer this particular question? So if you can link all that you are supposed to teach to 1-2 questions out there, which I do in my class. In the MBA, it's easy for me. I always raise a whole lot of questions in the beginning. And then I try to teach them as to find answers to that. So everything my answer is to say that existing systems will continue. You can't do much about it, but you can add what I'm talking about to the existing system and make the existing system actually deliver better results than what it does.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Manikandan.
Go ahead, Manikandan.
Manikandan, please ask. I think.
Mr. Manikandan and Mr. Anbalagan, you have raised your hand. Can you just ask the questions now?
Unmute and ask. I think maybe you're on mute. That's why I couldn't hear you.
Sir, one questions come in the chat box, sir.
Sure.
Miss R. Sheila from our faculty. She is asked, nowadays students simply want the degree but don't want to learn formally. They don't want to listen also. They don't have patience to listen and learn. Please give your suggestions, like that she is asked. Yes, sir.
I agree. See, they don't listen, or they don't want to listen to things which are not relevant for them. And I think that's why you asked the students, to have a debate between love marriage and arranged marriage. And show me a student community that won't be interested in having a discussion on it or finding an answer to that. So I think it's important to find questions and topics that are relevant to them. And whatever you are teaching, how do you bring it in, the science into what I would call this, making it relevant for them. So I definitely get into, the ultimate in mathematics is not Nobel Prize, but it's a field medal. And if I'm right, about 2 years back, the man who won the field medal is an Indian from Stanford. And he teaches mathematics, and very complex mathematics, Fibonacci numbers and other things around. But how does he teach Fibonacci numbers and constructions around there? By taking the tabla. He's a tabla player. And he shows that in the tabla, the very construction of the notes are actually based on Fibonacci numbers. So his class is completely based, not Fibonacci numbers, it's based on tabla. Same is with Sanskrit poetry. Sanskrit poetry had so much of Fibonacci number. Fibonacci, whatever, he discovered it in some 1600 or 1800 or whatever. But Indian people have been writing Sanskrit poetry thousands of years back based on a Fibonacci number understanding. So how do you make your learning relevant for the audience? To me, I don't know whether my class was interesting today or not, but I was trying to, Dr. Ravi, I spoke to you. I tried to understand who the audience is, what sort of this ones are. I tried my best.
Yes.
I can still do it better, but who my audience is. So definitely, I try to bring examples, try to bring things that are relevant to you, which will be useful for you, which is interesting for you. And that is how I try to make my session interesting. I could have spoken it from a very neuroscience and other point of view and all that, and which I do. In some classes, I talk about the neuroscience of learning. But that wouldn't have worked today. Definitely would have been much more boring than what I would. So if the cameras were on a bit more, I would have figured out from your eyes whether you were interested in, really were interested in what I'm talking.
Yes.
So I would have had my own ways of doing it. But the whole point I'm coming back to, Dr. Ravi, to that question is, please make your subject relevant to the audience.
Yes.
So understand all that you want to teach. Don't say it from the way that you want to do it, but put it in the way the students want to learn it from their world of movies, their world of sports, their world of this. So a lot of my learning today on decision making is on what happens in the mind of a batsman when the ball is bowled at 140 kilometers per hour. So I go through the brain processes that happen in the batsmen's, and that is about 0.4 seconds, 0.4, 0.45 seconds. I use that to actually communicate the neuroscience processes around there. So make it relevant. That would be my answer, to make sure that the students are interested in what we teach.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Miss Amruta Pole.
Again, you're on mute, Amruta. I can't hear you.
Amruta Pole, please come up. I think it's not. Okay, anybody else? Thusali, madam, if anyone is not ready to ask any question, we'll be starting.
I don't think so, because they have raised their hand, but no questions have come up.
Yes.
Yeah.
2, 3 were raised their hand. Questions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, I have one question, sir, to you, sir. Actually, sir, in teaching part, we are training the student teachers in our college who are joining here for PhD degree. But they don't have any idea on the part of questioning. Actually, since we have a separate skill, one of the teaching skill is called questioning skill. Questioning itself is a skill of teaching, actually. But nowadays, they are not bothering about questioning skills. How we can enhance it, sir?
Yeah, I think we have to, because otherwise, if you just go the traditional way, it doesn't. And I just saw another comment made by someone saying that our students are only interested in marks and just passing the marks and other things. There's one whole area that I have not spoken about today, and that could be even, Dr. Ravi, applicable for even the teacher students who come in as teachers, and that to me is what the importance of what I call dreams, because what are your dreams? What do you want to do in life? What do you want to achieve in life? And one of the things I believe good teachers will do is not just to teach subjects to people and questions, because that was the topic today. But one of the things I often tell them is, can you actually get the kids to dream? And most of kids who are from the villages and others, and tell them there is a big world out there, that you can be the best in the world in what you do. Because a lot of our kids are not studying, not this, because they can't visualize how the big things that they can do. Their dreams are too small. When the dreams are too small, you don't have to work too hard also. You achieve it. Raise your dreams. How do you get the kids to dream big? Or even as a teacher, how do you tell them that, you become a teacher of Nobel Prize winners, Nobel Prize. Say Samay Singh, when we all retire and rest at home, someone who comes says, "Teacher, you remember me?" I said, "No, I don't. But teacher, you inspired me, and today I'm CEO of a company. I think we all need to have dreams, and I think if you don't have dreams, anything you do in life becomes one monotonous thing and just doing it for the sake of it. The dreams are what drives you, and I think it's very important that we instill dreams in people. And one of the biggest issues that I find with kids today who are not doing well, either they don't, and the good thing, the point is that if you look at you, I'm sure those of you teaching in your first standard or your, kindergarten and all them, you line up all those little ones and ask them, "What's your dream?" "I want to become a policeman. I want to become a teacher. I want to become a..." Now what happens by the time they reach high school, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, "What's your dream?" "Teacher." Now what happens is, I think our systems somehow don't allow them to dream. Now you look at the sports people who are winning in, they're all people when they were all of nothing said, "I want to win an Olympics game." That's why they got up at the age of 10 and 11 and practiced it every day. And the coaches and the parents all sort of said, "No, you can." But even when defeats happened, even when they lost the national championship, they said, "No, you can." But he woke up again, national champion, but I continued. So I think there's a whole area on how to develop dreams in kids and how to instill that and make it there, without, of course, making stressful that they don't get into, with getting them to deal with failures, because that's another point. When you do it, a lot of disappointments can happen, and it can lead to a huge downward swing, and suicides and others are part of that. Obviously, these are all, when you do that, we also have to teach this. So those are all, sometime when I have another opportunity to talk to you, we will speak about it. But today, since we were focusing on questions, I didn't focus on it. So it's not that questions alone will solve it all. It's a complex problem, and we have to attack that problem from multiple angles. And today I just spoke only from one angle of trying to develop the importance of questions. And that's what my focus today was.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question came from chat box. Ms. Amruta Pode. Actually, sir, nowadays the students just want passing marks. They don't want to learn the subject thoroughly. How can we tackle this?
That's why, Amrita, I saw that when I was flashing by. I think maybe that's why. I think that's why I said it's not about questions alone, but interest can be generated with questions. If you as a teacher can bring in interesting questions, that is one way to keep students interested in that subject. Like people say, "Oh, mathematics is so boring," something else. But can you bring in interesting problems which they see in life? And can you get them to think? And then they start getting that. But that will go a long way. But then you have to do it with importance of dreams, importance of other things. So also there. But that's the way. That's the way to create. But definitely marks, getting them to pass, this A pluses, I don't think that really interests too many people.
Thank you, sir. I think there's no much questions. Trisoli, madam, so we go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Sir.
A special thanks to our resource person. Sir, your insights and perspectives are really valuable, and we enjoyed the session thoroughly. Thank you. Now I call upon Dr. R. Kokilamani, Professor, MJCOE, to share a note of gratitude.
Good afternoon, everyone present here. I am very happy to be here to propose vote of thanks for today's webinar on critical thinking, students learning to ask the right questions. First of all, I would like to thank our chairperson, Dr. Mary Jo, Head MJC, Mr. T. Kosi, and Mr. Elizabeth Kosi, Trustee and Head Operations MJCOE, and Mr. Babu P. Varu, Secretary and Trustee, and Mr. Matthew V. Francis, CEO, MJC Center, and always supporting us to arrange this type of wonderful sessions. Then I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Mr. Biju Dominic, for making excellent presentation and making the webinar interesting and meaningful. Actually, Sir has given a chance to remember our primary school teacher's name today. Really, it was wonderful. And also, he has explained a lot of areas like fundamental shift and new education policy, regarding that suggestion for new education policy, decision making, and multidisciplinary learning, and curiosity, and also how to create the feeling of ignorance among the students community. And also he explained a lot of things, and also he has explained the critical thinking with very good examples, like Maggie packet and then telescope. He has explained well. Really, it was wonderful, sir. Thank you, sir. Finally, the question session also so interesting. Thank you so much, sir. And also, I would like to express our profound gratitude to our principal, Mr. Dr. R. Ravi, Deputy CEO, Program Director, for his presence in this webinar. I would also like to thank our program coordinators, Dr. J. Emmanuel Johnson, Dr. P. Triselvi, and our faculty members for their moral support, making this webinar a great success. Finally, the wonderful teachers, teacher educators, students who have turned up in such great numbers, not only from our department, but also from other departments of the college of education, school. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Once again, I thank all for your cordial cooperation. Thank you.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, madam, and thank you, sir. Mr. Biju, sir, thank you very much. And dear participants, hope you had very insightful thoughts on the topic. Kindly fill up the feedback form and submit. We appreciate your presence with us today, dear participants, and get connect with us tomorrow at the same time. Once again, thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
A big thank you from all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Dr. Ravi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.